welcome to Fox Sports Lab NRL. I'm Eloise Sohier, and with me is NRL greats Josh Morris, stats guru Tim Williams, and the only man in the country to tip the Tigers to beat the Panthers, Chris Lawrence.
Thank you.
Take a bow.
Thank you.
How did you do it?
Only took 8 weeks, so yeah, we've got Timmy the Tiger in as well for the celebration. How good is got
Chris,
the moves
did you
as well.
request this?
Yeah, he's been with me all week.
Bit of
love.
Look, the big question is, Chris, can they bounce back this week in Magic Round? Can you perform a magic trick for us,
I think Timmy's, as long as Timmy goes to Magic Round, I think they'll be right.
Timmy loves the airtime.
We'll see you after the show, Tig. Well, it is NRL Magic Round. We like to pull things out of the hat as we did then, but it kicks off with the Bulldogs and Raiders on Friday night. And Josh, you're not getting too carried away with the Bulldogs despite their win over the Dragons.
Yeah, look, it was a really gutsy win. They did it with a few players injured, but that's the story of the Bulldogs' year at the moment. Their injuries. You know, every time they look good, someone else gets injured. Braden Burns was outstanding for them on the weekend, and he's not playing this week. The Raiders, they've won 3 in a row now as well, so they're kind of flying under the radar. I think off the back of Jack Whiten's news, the performance he put on the weekend was outstanding, and I think that gives them confidence to win this game as well. Let's
touch on the Bulldogs for a minute, Tim. With Jake Averillo, Carl Oluwapu, those sort of juniors that are getting their chance at the Doggies. What are they proving for this next generation, and how much can they impact this squad?
Yeah, there's plenty of talent there. Averillo was outstanding on the weekend. He's got so much speed about him. Those 2 runaway tries. Oluwapu's an interesting one. Obviously got his debut on the weekend, came off the bench. You can tell that they're obviously being pretty patient with him. They'll ease him into a starting role. In New South Wales Cup, he's a big ball running 5'8". They've been getting him in at halfback in New South Wales Cup just to learn the trade, learn to get a side around the park. My question for you boys with Oluwapu and with Matty Burton. Burton's obviously made that shift from 5'8" to halfback the last couple of weeks as they're making this transition. Do you think he can make that move to halfback properly, or do you think he, by nature, is a ball-running 5'8"?
Oh, I think he can. He's young. You know, that they can teach him the system and he can learn it and then go down in reserve grade and implement it and then come up to first grade so he feels confident. I think having a bloke like Josh Reynolds there is going to be massive for his development as well. He'll only help him and teach him the ropes as well. So I think it's definitely possible that he can slot into that halfback position.
I think you look at like a side like the Sharks, they've really got 2 running ball players, you know, Matt Moyle and Nicho Hynes, and I was probably at first sceptical if they would work. They've shown that it can work if you have a 9, obviously like Brayley there, and you've got Reid Marnie there to really look after the middle. If they've got a 9 that control the middle of the ruck and have 2 running ball players, I think it can work in the long term, especially if they've got good kicking games as well. That's probably the most important thing of being a halfback.
So who comes away with the 2 points in this one?
I'm with the Raiders. I think we spoke about a few weeks ago. They're a type of side that, again, can play ugly and string a few wins in a row together. They've done 3 in a row now. They could quietly go under the radar and put 4 or 5 together. We've spoken about it. They're not going to blow a team away. They're going to be in the game right until the death. I just think with those added injuries of the Bulldogs, the back end of the game, they might feel the pinch.
We spoke a month ago about the Raiders and things that they might be able to change to sort of get a few wins on the board, and there's been a couple of things there, but the 4 games they've lost this season, they average 7 offloads per game. The 4 games they've won, they've averaged 13. And we spoke about a lot of their attack coming through their forward pack. That's where the money's tied up in their roster. It's a very dominant forward pack, but they need to be creating that second phase play. So Ricky Stewart, obviously a big fan of Fox Sports Lab, and he's taking that on board. They're starting to free the arm, and they're looking good.
Yeah, he's a regular viewer here, Tim. So Ricky, if you're watching, his little shout out. Now the second game up is a beauty. A Seagulls team looking to find some form up against competition leaders, the Brisbane Broncos. Chris, there have been some worrying signs at Manly at the minute, off field, on field. What have you make of where they're at the season so far?
Yeah, there's probably 2 things that are worrying me. Their inability to really perform with Tommy Turbo out. They've shown it over a number of years, but probably that inability to adapt their game style for having him out, and some of the negative off-field dramas that they're having. Obviously, the issues with Josh Schuster. You've had some players, Daly Cherry Evans, come out and publicly give him a spray. They've got obviously coming out about having a fight with a teammate. All those things don't read well. You want to have a team that's in harmony and working together, particularly, again, when, yes, you've got Tommy Turbo back, but he's probably not 100% fit. You need your other teammates performing, and I think there might be a little rift in there.
Who's a bigger impact, Tommy Turbo for Manly or Ezra Mam and Payne Haas for the Brisbane Broncos? I mean, I think that's sort of...
I think Payne Haas and Ezra Mam. I think Payne Haas has been putting the team on his back for a long time, but now he's got the support of Carrigan, Flegler, blokes like that. But we saw how much of an impact he had when he wasn't there in the South game. So I think him coming back spells trouble for Manly. And Ezra Mem, I think he's been one of the players of the season so far. So Tom, as Chris said, I don't know if Tommy's at 100%, and they've lost Jake as well. So he's normally the one to get that forward pack together and in harmony. Without him, they might struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. There you have it too. Great Friday night contest to really get the Magic Round party started. It's hard to believe the Panthers are coming off back-to-back losses. They face the Warriors on Saturday. Tim, what's your assessment of last year's premiers? Have they lost their mojo?
Yeah, look, I don't think Eloise have lost their mojo just yet. That'd be a bit tough on them, but quite amazing stats. The first time they've lost back-to-back games since 2021, round 14. The week before that, round 13, they actually lost to the Tigers as well. That was a week where their squad was decimated due to Origin, so I can't see them losing 3 on the trot.
Chris, your West Tigers, they got up over the Panthers. It was a huge game. Congratulations for you for backing them. What did you make of the Premiers game in that one?
Yeah, look, I think they were their own worst enemy. Don't get me wrong, the Tigers did play some really good footy in good conditions. I think they were impatient, and it's probably something we don't associate with the Panther side is impatience, and they would have learned a lot from that. They are the hunted, and they have been the hunted team for the last couple of years, and they've had a few changes this year with injury and with players going, so I think they'll really learn a lot of lessons from that. They get some big ins back this week, and I think they'll bounce back. One
of those big ins is James Fisher-Harris, a huge inclusion for them, Josh. But what do you make of the Warriors as well coming into this game and where they're at in this season? Some inconsistency there, and then they can string a few games together. Where do you see them?
Yeah, look, they're kind of in a patch where they've been decimated by injuries. They had a tough game against the Roosters in boggy conditions, so I'm not sure you can take a lot out of that game. It was going to be a close game. I think the Panthers obviously will want to bounce back. They don't want to lose 3 on the trot. James Fisher-Harris is kind of their leader of the pack. He sets their aggression. So I think with him in, it's a massive inclusion. I think the Panthers get the job done.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Now, the Sharks have snuck into second spot on the back of 3 consecutive wins. Josh, you fancy them to ruin Wayne Bennett's 900-game celebrations.
Yes, I do. But funnily enough, they seem to play really well with milestones. But I think what was most impressive about the Sharks last weekend was their defence. Only 6 points against the Cowboys. They had some stinging defence to back that up with some scintillating attack. Nico Hines is on fire, so I can't see them losing this one.
Chris, how tough is it to come up against the side when you've got someone like Nico Hines leading them across the park in attack, and then they've got the defence that they're putting out at the moment? I mean, they're just threats at both ends.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing with the Sharks attack is that if you're a defensive edge and if you come up to Jan to shut them down, they've just got the skills to really back it off and beat you with their hands, but they've also got the power to run through you, so they're very hard to come up against and really gameplay against, and that's why they seem to be so good and really execute their plays. If they've got the defence on and the addition of Dale Finucane, they're going to be very, very hard to stop.
Tim, I'll touch on you. You can get us through the Dolphins and a few stats around them. They welcome back Tessie New. How do you see them sort of at the moment? We know that they've fallen away at games at the start, but they've managed to mount a comeback. How wary are the Sharks of the Dolphins bringing that out in the second half?
Yeah, the first half, the last couple of rounds, has been terrible from the Dolphins, and I think Wayne Bennett, you mentioned his 900th game, they'll rectify that. They'll be up for this clash. I do think the Sharks will have too much firepower for them in this game, but every time we've even considered doubting the Dolphins this season, they've found a way to make us look silly, haven't they? So I'd be a little bit worried going too far against them this week, but the Sharkies are looking pretty good.
Yeah, well, Cronulla could finish Magic Round in top spot if all goes to plan for Craig Fitzgibbon's men in Brisbane. Without doubt, this looms as the match of Magic Round. The in-form Rabbitohs up against a Melbourne side fresh off the bye. Chris, can the Rabbitohs overcome their poor record against the Storm this weekend?
Look, I think they can, and it's probably something they've probably addressed. They're in scintillating form the last few weeks. Their attack and their defence as well. All their key players are playing really well. They will look at this as a challenge and to really make a statement in this competition, and I think you'll see some of your big players really step up, and I think they'll get the win.
Does Craig Bellamy look at individual players this week? So likes Latrell Mitchell, Cody Walker, Campbell Graham, they're in form. Who do they focus on, or how do they approach this game?
Well, I think the Storm have been famous for putting a head on a platter, and they go after that player each week. It could be Latrell, it could be Cody, it could be Campbell Graham, but I think we'll find out in the first 5 minutes who they're actually targeting, and they do it so well. But I'm really looking forward to this game. It's Origin jumpers are on the line in this one. This is a great audition, and I think we can see some players stand up and get a Blues jumper from this game.
Yeah, absolutely. There is plenty to play for this game. Now, Nelson Asafa-Solomona had a huge impact in his return for Storm from injury. Tim, how much does he or his presence bring to this Melbourne Storm side?
He's such a focal point of Melbourne's attack. I do think they're lacking middles a little bit this year, but Big Nass, he came back last week. He had 5 offloads, I think 5 tackle busts, played 58 minutes, really big numbers for him. So he's so important to them. He's so important to Harry Grant as well, who is probably the creative head in that side. Just on South Sydney, as good as they've been this year in attack, we know they've got points in them. Defensively, they've been outstanding. They've actually got the second best defence in the NRL this year, 15 points per game. The Brisbane Broncos, who they beat last week, had the best attack in the game. Defensively, they're also 3 clear of third place, which is also the Broncos, who concede 18 per game. Just dominant. So if they can piece that defence together with their attack, they're going to take some serious beating this year.
Just on that defensive chat, Chris, is that where these sort of tight games are won? Is that whoever can put up the best defence and not concede points?
Yeah, it definitely is. And especially when you have limited opportunities in games, you have to make sure defensively you really snuff them out. And it gives you that confidence that when you go down that end, you can do the reverse and score those points. And it's something probably previous years South Sydney have taken a long time to do it. The fact they've got their defence in order so early in the competition gives them the confidence that if they can stop those tries, they can score them at any point in time.
Yeah, can't wait to see who comes out on top here. This is one game you won't want to miss.
You know it's a better betting app when you've got stats and insights for every major game and race. Plus expert opinions from the best minds in the game, all in the palm of your hand. That's better. Chances are you're about to lose.
Well. West Tigers finally win a game, and now everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon. Chris, can you believe that these two alongside me are tipping? Look at this grin on his face. They're tipping the Tigers to beat the Dragons after everything they've gone against them this year.
I've sat and copped it all every single week from you guys. Isn't a week a long time in rugby league? Against me each and every week, and now you jumped on the bandwagon.
So tell us why you're tipping the West Tigers.
Oh, look, I think a few of the young fellas get their first win. It's a different week at training. The pressure's off. The confidence is there. You can go out and try and play a bit more exciting footy. You don't feel as restricted or have the shackles on because you're not worried about losing. So I think that bodes well for the Tigers.
2 40-20s from Luke Brooks. His kicking game was great. It's probably one of the best games we've seen in a long time from their half. What did you make in his assessment of the game, Tim, and how much confidence does that bring just him as an individual who has taken a lot of the brunt of their losses this year?
Yeah, poor old Brooksy. He's the first one to be scapegoated when anything goes wrong at that club, and so happy to see him put on a big performance against the Panthers, obviously back-to-back premierships. He just played to the conditions well and played like a halfback should. He kicked extremely well. He kicked long. He kicked early. And the Tigers as a club, or as a team I should say, they played to the conditions better than Penrith did. Penrith were probably trying to be a little bit too expansive at times. The Tigers were high completion and got the job done, and I think, Luke Brooks had a big say in that.
Can you believe what you're hearing, Chris?
I know, it's good to see some positive talk about the Tigers, but I agree with both what they're saying in terms of the confidence. It's like the monkey off the back, getting that first win. There was probably a few cases 10 minutes before the end of the game they could have iced that game, but I think the fact they haven't won in a while, they just did not know how to win. I think the fact they've been able to get a win against such a good side, the confidence is going to be there. Brooksy got back to just playing to his strengths. When you're down on form, just play to your strengths and play some simple footy and just nail one thing. He's been able to nail that. He'll be able to extend on that, and I'm confident they can do it again. Yeah,
absolutely. Now the Roosters suddenly have their strut back and face a Cowboys side headed in the wrong direction. Tim, surely we can chalk this down as a Roosters win.
You would think so. But the thing we're seeing a fair bit this season is when sides do get decimated or they have a big loss, they often get up the next game, and that happens so frequently in the NRL. So, look, I don't want to write the Cowboys off for that reason, but the Roosters are in pretty decent form. They're looking okay without looking outstanding. One player I'm excited to see come back is Hurlem Lukey on the edge for the Cowboys. I think he's a future star of our game. Obviously suffered an ACL injury last year, had a hamstring injury about a month ago. He comes in for Jeremiah Nanai, and I think if he had a longer period to string games together, I think he'd be a smoky for Origin. But just a massive in for them, but too many injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Both just alongside you quickly, both tipping the Roosters in this one.
Yeah, with the Roosters, but they're wary about the Cowboys if they do bounce back. But I think Roosters are hard to go past.
Yes, there would have been plenty of sleepless nights for Todd Payten as he attempts to turn this worrying form slump around. It is time for us to go over our Magic Round tips, but before we do, let's quickly look at the Titans and Eels match. Josh, the Titans' recent record against the Eels doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
Yeah, look, the Eels, they're outstanding against the Knights. We wondered how they'd be without Regan Campbell-Gillard, but Wiremu Greg was outstanding for them and did a really good job in his absence. The Titans, look, they got a good win over Manly, but no AJ Brimson. There's an injury cloud under Foran. I just think the Eels are in a better position here.
What do you like about the Eels heading into this one off the back of that win over the Knights? But are you still convinced by what they can do at the moment, Tim?
I thought that was the most complete performance Parramatta had put together in a long time. They played for 80 minutes, which is a rarity with that side, because we know they've got the strike power and they've got so many points in that side. I just find them so hard to get a gauge on because one week they're up, the next week they're down. They seem to be like that and have been like that for the last 18 months. So in theory, yes, they should come out and win this game potentially quite comfortably. But again, we just don't know what Parramatta side's going to turn up. And to be fair, the Titans are a bit the same. So it's a tough game to assess.
Just quickly, Kieran Foran, if he doesn't play this weekend, we know he's had that really bad toe last game. He did play 80 minutes, but how much does that hurt their side in terms of consistency and around the spine, in the halves?
Yeah, definitely. He'd be a massive loss. Even with him playing, not 100%, it's going to be really tough for them, especially with AJ Brimson out, and means a lot of experience in that spine does go. Like what Tim said with the Eels, if they go back to playing that grinding style of game, the points do come. I think early on in the year they've tried to score too many points. We know they can score points. They got to a grand final of playing a grinding style football where Mitch Moses kicks to the corners and they wait for the opposition to make the mistake. If they do that, the Titans have showed that they can be patchy and come out in second halves in a lot of games and really leak a lot of points early. So I think if Parramatta stick to that grinding style in the back end of the second half, I think they get the Titans.
Yeah, there you have it. Now let's take a look at the panel's round 10 tips, and it seems we are pretty much in sync for once, but I think the Dragons will win. So I just want to offer the panel one last chance to stick with the Tigers. Tim, if there is an upset, where should we be looking across Magic Round?
Look, it's a tough one this week, isn't it? There are a lot of quite levelled up games. I think Penrith are pretty dominant in their one. The one that I worry a little bit about, and it doesn't probably make a lot of sense, but just the Cowboys, that bounce back factor. I know they're missing a lot of numbers, but the Roosters haven't been overly convincing. So if there's one big upset coming, it could be the Cowboys.
Are we convinced that last year's premiers, the Panthers, are back on track at the moment? How are we feeling going into this one?
Oh, look, they've had back-to-back losses. They would be very unhappy with how they performed against the Tigers. They really didn't play to the conditions, but they get James Fisher-Harris back, who's a massive inclusion for them. I just can't see them dropping this game, and I think Nathan Cleary will stand up on the weekend. And
just lastly, Chris, how exciting is Magic Round to be up there, all the one Suncorp Stadium? It's going to be an exciting round.
Yeah, I think the atmosphere of having all the teams up there, and we've shown, the last few weeks, yes, there's been a couple of blowouts, but the quality of the football across the start of the season has been fantastic, and Tigers showed last week, even last can beat, one of the top teams, so every fan can go in there with the hope that their team's going to win this weekend. I
just want to touch on that where you said the competition's so tight. Can we remember a time where a season has been this close through 10 rounds where we can't really pick it each week because some of those teams are like the Titans upsetting Manly, and then there's been a few upsets. Have we seen this before in times gone by?
Not from recent memory. I can't remember where pretty much from 13th to 4th is basically 2 points.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. You can go in there dead set thinking the side's going to win, and if they're off by 1 or 2%, the other team can win. And I think that's what's been so exciting about this season, where there's a flip of a coin for some of the games, and they're the games you really want to watch each weekend.
So what does that say about where we are with the league in terms of the NRL as a whole? Is it the grassroots? Is it the talent that we're coming through? Why is the competition so close? What is that? Can you put your finger on why it is?
I think it is a lot to do with the pathways. I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be this middle part of the year when injuries come, when State of Origin comes. The depth is going to be tested, especially with that 17th team. That's probably where we may start to see some blowouts. If sides start getting their main side back towards the back end of the year, things may even up. But I think because a lot of teams are investing so much and really getting those young players into that system, 16, 17-year-olds are getting full-time training quite young.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is our show for this week. Thanks, team. What a round of matches we have in store. We will be taking a short break here at Fox Sports Lab NRL before returning for a special State of Origin show. Make sure you keep an eye out for updates on social media in coming weeks.
You know it's a better betting app when you've got stats and insights for every major game and race. Plus expert opinions from the best minds in the game, all in the palm of your hand. That's better. Chances are you're about to lose.